Hi, Becky.
Hey, Kevin.
How you feeling?
Yeah. Freezing, but I'm gonna be fine. I was just exhausted, I think. I was just had a splitting headache I could not shake.
Now, this is what happens when you're sitting out in the rain.
What?
You were sitting out in the cold weather the other
Yeah,
day.
I was thinking about that too.
You got to watch that. All right, where am I? It's not going to work and it's fraudulent. They believe it.
Yeah, it's just unnerving to them. Hey, AJ, hi.
Hey there.
Hey, Jim.
Melody?
Yes, apologies. I don't have video tonight, so I'm sorry about that. You can imagine me looking like I'm going to a ball.
Okay.
Wonderful.
You're not flying tonight?
I'm not, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Hey, Melody, how you doing? It's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good. I'm sorry I haven't stopped by and said hello recently.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Yeah, I missed road day on Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I went out of town.
By the way, the building inspector looked at the building being built above you, Melody.
Oh, yeah, and?
He was signing off on my new wood stove and he happened to notice it. So I suspect a letter is going out this week to those people. Seeing as there's no building permit.
Ooh.
Hi, Bob.
Hi there. How are you?
Let's see,
I got I'll take that one too.
is it just George? Just George we're missing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we want to get started? We do have a quorum.
Sure
It's
we do.
okay. I'll call the meeting to order. Can we start with the minutes from last meeting that AJ sent out to us, I think earlier this afternoon?
I have two suggestions.
To the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I have them open, so fire away.
Okay. In part 3, the first dot, I found I'd like it to be clarified that Shutesbury is responsible for 50% of the retirees' supplemental health plans. Is that true? Because they're not liable for 50% of Medicare.
Got it.
Is that clear? Is that true? Okay.
Good question.
And then the other one is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth dot at the bottom of the page. I think the current balance is $599,199, not $655. But somebody else could read the chart and figure that out. Current balance for OPEB.
All right. And you're getting that off the planning tool?
I think I'm reading the chart correctly.
Yeah,
And
it's-
actually, there were a couple of charts, so I don't really know which is the right chart.
It's on the expense schedules, the expense reports we get. It's one of the funds. I'll look it up.
Okay, so just on the OPEB chart, it says 2022 is 655K. And so I thought we would reflect 2021, which is 599.
That's as of June 30, 2020, I think. It's 599.
Right.
Yep, I see it. 599, 199. Oh, I see it on the expense report.
Yeah, so maybe we wanted to reflect the next year, but that's what I wondered.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good change. I'm gonna update it.
And other than that, it's good.
Okay, thanks.
Is everyone else looking through the minutes still, or are we, I'm still scanning them a little bit. I didn't have a chance to look earlier.
I'm still looking to Jim.
Okay.
Hey, did we ever find out how much the hold harmless amount might be for Amherst? For
I
the
think
region?
it's between $3 and $6 million. I did not get a.
We
I
don't have
think-
an updated number. Okay.
No, it's been in the paper and I looked at, they get $9 million in state aid. So I don't know, it's hard to, outside of what they've written, it's hard to know exactly when
Yes.
it's changed.
I saw an
mean,
editorial. I'm sorry.
I just don't know when the hold harmless went into effect. But I've heard them talk about millions of dollars, so I'm pretty sure it's more than 3.
I have no other changes to the minutes.
Yeah, they all look, I have no, same here. Is anyone else still reviewing?
I'm done. They're okay with me.
Yeah. Okay, everyone else is good? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
Second,
Okay, and vote?
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. Okay. AJ, has it worked out okay working with Gail or whoever as far as getting these minutes posted in whatever the
Great.
proper
Yeah.
places? Is that working out all right? Or,
Yeah, I'm behind one set of minutes, but I'll send the last one with these October 6th ones,
okay,
and then we should be up to date. Yeah.
Great.
okay, cool. Next item is, we have the next couple items include Kevin Rudin. And Kevin, you want to start with town valuation update?
The Department of Revenue hasn't certified the numbers yet, but I can give you the actual new growth figure because that's not going to change. The total new growth coming off of last year into this year, real and personal property is a whopping $3,858,900. And I just want to point out that 1.5 million of that is picking up the second year's growth of the solar farm.
The total is 3,850,300.
3,858,900
Okay, thank you.
and 1,507,786 is the second year of the Wheelock property solar farm.
And your editorial word whopping, is that, is it more or less than regular years for new growth?
It's 500,000 alone in single family homes.
Mhm.
So total residential was 526,271. There's an awful lot of, we don't have a lot of new houses Susie, most of that is building permits and additions. That has slowed down dramatically in, since July 1. I have not seen the type of growth we had last year yet. So that to me is a good size number. I will be able, during your budget cycle, based on building permits issued, say as of like the end of January, and knowing what the third year of the solar farm will be, I can give you an estimate towards the budget. But we had quite a bit of building permit growth, I think, compared to the prior year. To be honest with you, this is my first full year of doing it, and not inheriting it from Ken. And I will tell you that I made an extraordinarily aggressive attempt to capture anything that had not been captured, including doing a pilot of an artificial intelligence program where we actually compared the state's aerial flyovers of the town from 5 years ago and last year, and picked up 4 buildings that had never been picked up. The
Wow.
good news is my predecessor picked up about 99.95% of all new growth past years. I found things that just never. We found a barn hidden in the woods, a sizable barn that had never been taxed, and 4 2-car metal carports that should have been taxed and never were, picked up by the aerial. But knowing that we were, if you all remember, going back to March, April, we were expecting a lousy state aid. And so I took it on myself to make sure that anything prior in the last 3 years, that building permits were issued that hadn't been collected, that we went out and got them. So that's why I think you have a big number. Right now we have about a third of a new house, a half of a new house, and a couple of additions this fiscal year, and that's it. Although we do have 2 houses on the lake that are going to be torn down and rebuilt. And so that tends to come in a lot higher than what the existing houses were. But we have to subtract out the value and then add the incremental. Bob?
Yeah, could you just give me an idea of what the total assessed value is so I can understand the percentage increase?
That I can't give you because the Department of Revenue hasn't certified it. We were at 220,009,970, and we're probably going to be 4 million above that, at least. And I'm not trying to be cute, but they tend to come back and ask a lot of questions, and we usually result in a give and take. And they're going to probably certify it next Monday, and I'd be happy to give out the number. But
Trying to understand what the percentage increase was, which looks like it's going to be approximately, 1.5% increase in assessed value or something growth.
yeah, in new growth alone is, let me just do it without the pilot included, translates into $56,520.79 in revenue that you didn't have last year. And then you add in the pilot payment. And I don't like adding in the pilot payment when you add up new growth, because we already know what it is in cash. So with the pilot next year, you're looking at about 120,000 in additional money that you didn't have in fiscal 20, in fiscal 21 through new growth.
And Kevin, is that the solar farm now will be fully valuated? There's no more changes on that valuation coming?
No, the valuation changes every single year. What happens is it actually lags a year. So we're in the 3rd year of payment, but the 2nd year of getting value, the way the Department of Revenue wants us to count it. So next year we go into the 4th payment year and the third year of value. This year is the first year for the batteries, but we will not get value to fiscal 22 out of the batteries. So I have a spreadsheet. Becky knows my joke. If a tractor trailer crosses Route 2 and kills me, I have a spreadsheet in the computer telling people how to do this going forward that the DOR will approve. The DOR is quite particular about how these are approved. So next year we are due to add another
12, 10 to 12.
$1.5 million. We're at 3 going into fiscal 21. We're at $3 million of value recognized for the solar farm, and we'll be up next year at about 4.5. And we'll be then in 22. We'll be at I'll have to back out 9,000 times whatever the tax rate is. But you have to use the last year's tax rate to calculate the value. That's why we lag a year behind. But that's going to grow every year and change, Susie, for the next 20 years. It will level off. We're getting large value now. And what you do is you take, it's very complicated, but once you get the current value to get the new growth, you subtract the prior value. So for instance, whatever the new value is for fiscal 22, we will subtract the 3,004,0890 from that to get the new growth. It's just a giant figure I have to calculate every year. It's actually a nightmare, but the DOR has said this is the way they want it. And basically I show them the spreadsheet every year and they don't bother us anymore. Becky knows they went through craziness with us last year. They rejected it like 4 times till we did it their way. So, and that's why, Bob, to your point, until they certify the total valuation, you know, last year we had $1.5 million swing. I don't want to give it out until they say this is it. My projection is it's going up about 4 million. So, but the new growth we know for a fact because although they haven't certified it, it is question proof. Yes, Jim.
Yeah, so does that mean that all of the increase in valuation based on your Formian estimate, all of that is related to new growth?
No, the new growth is the 3.8 million. The actual growth has to do with when we're looking at the valuation, we're looking at sales from the period of March of calendar year 18 through December of calendar year 19, and it's the growth or decrease in sales has driven that. So for instance, single family homes are going up. 2-family homes actually are going down overall value. Based on sales. What else is changing? We lost some open space and recreation value due to the 117 acres the state took from the parcel on Stoll Drive. The state took by eminent domain 117 acres. So that's no longer taxable. So that value went down. The largest growth was single family homes due to the sales in that 15-month time period. I would say the largest increase in sales will be reflected in fiscal 22 because that's the inflation we're seeing in calendar 20. Calendar 20 does not get counted. The sales are always behind. So when you had the Great Recession, the values went down a year or two after it started going down and came up a year or two after. So really the really larger sale prices that we've seen in calendar 20 won't show up until the fiscal 22 valuations.
Okay.
And so far we're tracking at about 40, what we call arm's length, that is no family relations single-family home sales this year, which is about what last year was.
Wow. It's
Well,
5%
yeah,
of
I mean,
the homes.
Can you
there
just,
There is no
Sorry, Kev.
COVID effect on real estate, by the COVID effect on single-family home sales and home sales in the entire state is they've gone through the roof. Everybody's leaving cities. Becky can tell you, most of the people moving to town are coming from 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50 miles away. They want the country. They want more bedrooms. All the I'm sorry, I'm dating myself. All the millennials living in the city are moving out. All the people with young families, they keep moving west from the Boston area, from the 128 area, from the 495 area till they could afford something. They're all finding 2 bedrooms to work from home in and another bedroom to educate their children in, and that's driven the home sales. And of course, it was all made possible by broadband. Because every realtor has told me we weren't even on the radar screen until we got broadband. So that's why you're having 40 sales compared to 8. 2 years ago, you had 8. 3 years ago, you had 7. Now you're having 40 a year. I don't know if that's going to continue, but we have not seen any, rather than a drop in home sales, we've seen a drastic increase in an average of anywhere from 10% inflation in prices, if not higher. The last 5 houses that were sold in Shutesbury all had bidding wars. I know when I bought my property in July, I topped out over 4 other bidders. And in fact, the person who came in second cut a side deal that if I couldn't get a mortgage, they'd pay $5,000 higher than I did. That's what we're seeing in town. So Shutesbury's hit the big time, just like Boston.
Wow.
Kevin, can you just repeat what the time frame was? It was March 18?
March of 18 through December of 19.
Okay,
The sales in that time period are the basis for the fiscal 21 valuations. Calendar year 2020 will be the basis for fiscal 22 valuation.
okay.
You're
got it.
always behind in going forward or backward. If the market starts going down, you won't see it for 12 to 18 months later in the valuations. But for now, what we're seeing is if you're in real estate, COVID has been a godsend. If you're selling a house, COVID has paid off for you. If you're buying a house, there's still a shortage of houses all over the state. There's a huge shortage in the Amherst area and the Worcester area. And so basically the prices keep going up. And I can tell you, we looked at a sale today. I have an inspection of it on Thursday. The people paid $65,000 over the valuation for a house on Leverett Road. That's common right now.
Kevin,
So
can
we
I-
obviously have to adjust valuations to match the market. George.
So you mentioned that the state took over 117 acres of land by eminent domain.
Yeah.
Are we going to negotiate with them on the pilot and try and get some money that way, get some of that money back?
The state doesn't do pilots.
In
When the
lieu of.
state owns land, you're going to love this one. When the state owns land, no matter what was paid for it by them, they decide the value of the land and they decide what they're going to pay us for it. We have no say in the matter.
Was
So-
the,
So when you look at a map of the town, George, and they own about a third of the land in the town, I can't value it. They do. We
Do they
can
pay us for
complain about it.
anything for it? What do they pay us for from the
In
state?
lieu of, in lieu of.
About $288,000 total.
So they may increase it then. I mean, they have a heart, don't they?
They average it. They look at all the property across the state they own and they average it. And I can tell you for fiscal 21, we didn't go up a penny in value. And the only recourse we have is if we disagree the value they put on it, we have about 3 months to challenge them, and to challenge their value experts would probably cost us close to $100,000 in legal fees just to lose.
But aren't they gonna have to pay more because they just acquired more land? Regardless of the value of what they say the value is?
It's going into their fiscal 22 numbers.
We should see a bump in 22. A
But
little.
what I did is on their paperwork, they give me a list of paperwork to match, and they did not have it on for 21 because the sale, although it technically closed in November of 19, they're not counting it. They didn't count it until 20, which means it shows up on their 22 list. So I've added the value back to them, and they've acknowledged that they need to add it. And I used the price they paid for it, which was substantial. But George, to your point, though, they own about a third of the town, and they value it, not us. And they decide what they're going to pay the cities and towns every year. And it's not just one state agency. It's 4 or 5 different state agencies, depending on who bought it. Some of it was bought to protect the Quabbin. Some of it was bought for open space. So the DCR has some, whatever the Water Resources Authority has some. It's a nightmare. Jim, you had a question.
Yes, Kevin, this 117 acres, this was purchased most likely by the MDC?
No,
Quabbin
it was
watershed?
purchased by the DCR.
For
The DCR bought it for open
Okay.
space.
for open space and not for the watershed, Quabbin water?
No, it's probably whoever had the deep pockets. That was the piece of land owned by Historical Enterprises. If you go down Stowell, there's one house
Yeah,
and there was a lot of land. Historical Enterprises is selling off all its properties in town. 117 point something went to the state, and then the house in 3 or 4 acres went to a resident. They just sold the duplex on Wendell Road, that sort of mustard colored duplex on the left side of Wendell as you drive towards the lake. That just sold. That's about a 30-acre parcel. And then obviously the other piece of land they had is where the cell tower is going.
Kevin, when you say open space, what does that mean? For purposes of the state purchasing land for open
So nobody
space?
builds on it because it's in the watershed.
Okay, it's a watershed.
Yeah.
It's a watershed
Yeah.
issue.
But
It's
it wasn't bought by the watershed people because it's whoever has money available when you contact the state. This was the DCR because they obviously had the money.
Okay, so this could just as easily been MDC if they had the money.
yes,
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's the state. We get one check every year in payment, but if you look at the actual ownership, there's like 6 or 7 different agencies actually own the different parcels in town.
Okay. The 117 acres is in, I happen to know that land fairly well, and that is in the Quabbin watershed. In other words, it drains into the Swift River.
Which is why they bought it.
It's just why they bought it, yeah.
But it
Okay.
happened to be the DCR that bought it, not the
Yeah, okay.
whatever the MDC is called now.
Yeah.
That's the
DCR.
largest purchase they've made in the last couple of years. It's the only purchase they made in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm surprised they're not going for the Rahunka property that's for sale on at 70 Cooleyville, because that has a stream in it and is part of the watershed, but that's up for grabs right now.
Oh.
So that's it. That's really it where we are in the values. I had hoped to have it certified. The numbers did go into the state, but they're all working from home. Of the 5 documents I submitted to the state in the last 3 days, they've certified 1. And that was the easiest one to certify, which is basically we didn't give any abatements on last year's new growth. So there's like 7 or 8 forms you submit every year to get the tax rate certified. And I have 2 more to go, one of which the town accountant has to fill out, and then one that we present to the select board at the classification hearing. Other than that, they have all the paperwork, but again, they've only approved one of them. Not unusual, but until they approve them, I don't count the numbers as real. So, so that's where we are. All right. As soon as they're certified, I'll be happy to send you the committee an email with what they are. They're fully public then, but until then, I'm afraid to give out a number and have them change it.
Yeah.
And as I said, they did that. We had quite a debate last year over a few things. I will tell you, just in terms of things that did go up in addition to the single family homes, the 3 electric utilities in town, the value of their property went up 1.4 million. So we have, well, it's really 2. It's National Grid, but they're under 2 separate companies, and then Eversource. And Verizon actually dropped $21,000 in their holdings. Don't ask why, but, and the electric utilities primarily, that's probably the last bump from all the poles and equipment they went in when broadband went in. So.
We've often wondered on the broadband committee whether the pole rental fees we pay equals what they pay us, the town of Shutesbury, for property taxes, or that, whatever that assessment amounts to. And it's an interesting question that I've never that no one seems to be able to answer accurately.
Well, Eversource and National Grid went from 4.3 million to 5.7 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their numbers.
Yeah.
Beginning, by the way, in fiscal 22, we have to use a new methodology to value the electric companies. And that number is expected to increase by about anywhere from 20 to 30%.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that the utility is leasing to us at a loss. If they're paying property taxes on that, right? I mean, there's no way that we're getting our money back.
No,
well, the joke assessors have is the DOR mandated a new method based on court cases, mandated a new way of valuing the electric companies beginning in fiscal 22. And if you were in a recert year this year, you had to do it. And every town that increased the value, the utilities immediately filed for a rate hike to pay for that.
Yeah.
So the DOR is actually forcing your consumer bill to go up by their new method of valuation.
Wealth redistribution.
Hey. And just by the way, I expect the cell tower to start construction in calendar 21. It got all its approvals from the FCC in Washington this summer. So the key on that is not the value of the tower, but the value of the carrier's equipment on it. The tower is going to be something like 18 grand in value. That's nothing. But if, each carrier can have anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 worth of equipment, depending on how many carriers they get. So I'm really looking for that to come in next year. That'll be a nice chunk of money.
But the question is, do they actually, has anyone signed up to go onto that cell tower? Because that's the critical thing, because I don't know of any company that'll build a tower unless they've got contracts in hand, for rental space on that tower. And I just don't know the answer to that.
I've sent 3 emails in the last 18 months to their lawyer that says, do you have any idea when you're going to apply for building permit? All 3 have gone unanswered.
And part
But
of
I
the-
have tracked the permission. I'm sorry, Becky.
the requirement in their special permit is they can't build without having a carrier.
Yeah, that's what
I
thought.
actually, given the gap in coverage, I actually cannot believe they can't get, I would be shocked if they couldn't get at least 2 to 3 carriers.
Well, I can tell you from experience, and I have had a lot of experience with cell towers, because several companies contemplated putting one on my land here by Lake Wyola, that there weren't any carriers then, and what few carriers there were way back in 2000 and 2008, because of economic circumstances and trouble like that, they dropped out of the picture. So I really doubt if carriers are going to show up in droves to
I would suspect that T-Mobile and Verizon will add 5G, or even AT&T will add 5G on it, because they're rolling out 5G as fast as they can.
Yeah, but 5G just doesn't work very well from cell towers. It's going to be done mostly on phone poles and stuff. It's a complicated business.
Okay, Susie?
I just want to say this is speculation, and we
Yeah.
have other things on our agenda.
Yeah,
I think, to
yeah.
go on.
That's true, and I just wanted to toss out that I do expect it to be built. Okay. Hopefully you all got a copy of the means tested real estate property tax exemption that I sent to Jim Walton. Did you pass it around, Jim?
I didn't get it.
Oh, did that just go to me?
Yeah, I thought Kevin asked me whether when it went to you, how it got distributed, whether it went automatically to everybody or you distribute it to everybody.
Becky, did you send it out last night?
I'm afraid I didn't because I was out today.
Oh, okay.
Jim, do you have it?
Yeah, I know I'm pulling it up now. Let's see.
Well, I think I can explain it fairly, even though you don't.
Yeah,
have the
I have it here. I have it here.
Will it help to see it on the screen while you're explaining it, Kevin? Or
It's a 3 or 4 page document, so.
so why don't you just start talking?
Yeah, I can.
You're set to put it up. You have your co-host if you want to put it up.
Okay, yeah. Which of these 3 documents? There's a PDF, there's a Word, and an Excel.
The Word.
Okay.
And while you do that, let me just explain. Most of the exemptions available to seniors are or people without means, or if you could scroll that up a little bit, Jim, are very, they don't give a lot of money in plain English. And the criteria is fairly tough. So there's been a movement among assessors over the last decade to try to find something that works as more and more seniors are getting priced out of their homes by taxes across the Commonwealth. This is not unique to Shutesbury, by the way. This is going on in every city and town across the state. The taxes are rising, and the people you want to age in place, have trouble staying in their homes. So the idea is there's been about 6 different styles of what we call means tested. That is based on people's income. And the best way of describing it is what you really want to do is get one that's easy for people to understand, easy for people to provide, fairly easy for a part-time office to administer, and fairly easy for people to apply for. Most of the models that were out there until recently probably were just a nightmare of financial manipulations to try to understand. I have to tell you, I've been working on one in the town of Mendon where I live as a member of the Board of Assessors for about 6 years. We've been studying this. And the model we were looking at, just nobody could understand or even figure out how to administer, even though one town has it. It's impossible. So basically, a means tested is applying a criteria to measure a person's assets to see if they apply for an exemption. This is the way all the exemptions work now, by the way. When people come in and ask for one, they have to meet an age criteria, an income criteria. If you're a veteran, if you're a blind, if you're a sole survivor, you have to meet the criteria. So many towns have tried to look at this that the Mass Assessor's Office, in fact, filed its own bill to create a standard. With all the COVID stuff going on, that's bogged down in a committee. And so what's happened is most people are filing home rule petitions. Jim, if you could go to the next page. And so the one that appears to be meet the four criteria are being used in Concord and Hopkinton, and it's basically piggybacking off the state's senior circuit income tax credit. And basically, if you qualify for that, you could qualify, you're kind of pre-qualifying yourself for something else. And so when you get this document, you'll find the asset criteria is quite substantial compared to the existing exemptions that exist that hold you to be basically in poverty. I mean, the current year, I believe you can have a home valued at up to $800,000. You can have a substantial income. But the way it works is if you file for this on your mass income tax, the current year is for 2020 is you get an $1,150 credit. If you don't make enough income to file an income tax return in mass, but you meet the criteria for the circuit breaker, the state will actually mail you the check for up to $1,150. So I've actually attached to the document that I know you don't have, but in this, there's a 2 to 3 page document explaining the income and criteria for it. What we do know is the DOR last updated by town who got it. In calendar year 2017, 29 Shutesbury residents received the maximum credit at the time of $912. The credit and the house value are raised every year. So we know that 29 people in 3 years ago met the criteria. That's a good sign that we have a population that's out there. I would point out, by the way, of all the existing exemptions we have, we do know that everybody in town who's eligible for them are getting them, with the exception of one person who refuses to apply because she says she'd rather pay her fair share. So we do know, based on veterans things and other things and a really good outreach, that we're fairly certain that the existing exemptions are being used. They're just not helpful enough because the dollar amounts are grossly outdated. When you have tax bills in the $4,000 and $5,000 range, and you're giving somebody $750 in his exemption, that might have been really good in 1960. It doesn't cut it right now. This helps a lot more. So the way the local thing would work is the way Concord and Hopkinton are working is each year the select board would decide whether they want to give anywhere from 50% of the state credit to 200% of it as an exemption to qualifying Shutesbury people. So based on the current 1150, that would mean an exemption ranging from $575 up to $2,300. And just for example, last year was Hopkinton's first year. They gave 35 residents a total of $66,000 in exemptions. And I will tell you how it's paid for right up front. The other, well, all residential taxpayers in the town share in the cost of giving the exemption. And in Hopkinton, that $66,000 translated to 2 cents being added to the residential tax rate. And if you had a home valued at $500,000, if anybody's been in Hopkinton, that's a low value for that town. That's 2 towns away from me, and I can tell you the average value is trending more towards the $800,000-900,000. That would have been a $10 tax increase. The average person, the assessor in Hopkinton told me the average single-family homeowner paid $45 more this year to give the 35 people that exemption. Okay. The other thing to look at is, let's say the select board said, we want to give the 200%. At this year's rate, that would be $2,300. If the senior also had the 1150 income tax credit, meaning they didn't have to pay that in, or they got the 1150 back in a check, they could combine that with the exemption and have, on that 50 to 200% range, have anywhere from $1,727 to $3,450 available to reduce their property taxes. Okay, $3,450 at this year's rates, that's a heck of an exemption. And that really, somebody with a $4,000 tax bill, they're now down to $550. That's a pretty good way of taking care of the poorest in the town, or the most neediest. At the 50% range, 1,727 between the town and their credit. That's still a decent exemption to knock a property tax rate down. So what the steps are to do it is, the select board would vote to put an article on the 2021 town meeting warrant in May, asking the two state legislators to file a home rule petition to grant the town the ability to offer this. And on the document you're getting an email, a draft copy of the home rule law is attached. Quite honestly, it's Concord's and Hopkinton with the name changed. I believe it's easier to repurpose than reinvent. The next step is voters at the town meeting this is where the voters have their say to say, we want to do this for the residents of town. They don't get to vote on the amount every year, the select board does, but this is where they endorse the concept of, we want to do this for people having trouble paying their taxes. It would then go to the legislature. They would have to consider it. And by the way, every home rule petition for this has been passed within 18 months. There's been no objections to them. So if you follow the traditional thing of, we pass it in May of 21, the legislature and the governor would get it enabled sometime between December of 21 and mid-calendar year 22. But in any event, it would be in time for fiscal 23. I gave you in the email, there's a PDF that is a copy of Hopkinton's application form. Basically, you just update it every year. We would ask, the assessor's office would take the application form and basically say, you need to give this in by, and I'm picking August. There's Hopkinton's. We're going to say the same date, August 31st, because of the cycle you need. In this case, you'd need to have filed by that time, it would be 2021 tax income form, and fill this info out. By the way, the info being asked to supply is no different than the confidential info we get now for exemptions. There's only two people that see that financial info, by the way, myself and Leslie Bracebridge. It's kept locked in a cabinet. It's not considered a public record under the state. When it's presented to the Board of Assessors, they're told there are this many exemptions for that amount. They do not know names. So it's the same process for an exemption now. You'd fill that out. We'd look at it. Because there's an acreage requirement when it comes to the value of a house, the circuit breaker rules say that if you have more than an acre, we have to deduct the value of any acres over that off their total value of the property. Trust me, people who might have 30 or 40 acres and be land rich, it's not going to knock them out of the qualification at all, because it still allows you to have $800,000 worth of value. And I can't think of any more than 2 or 3 houses in town that have more than that value, and they're not owned by seniors. So the next steps would then be Every year by September, we'd evaluate this form to see who's eligible. And in most cases, we don't deny people. It's a question of people have trouble filling these out, and we tell them what more we need. And in October of every year, I would then go to the select board and say, based on the number who qualified, and there's a spreadsheet in the package, and Jim Walton, if you could open that spreadsheet for a minute, that's in that email I gave you. That's it. We would give this to the select board every year that says, okay, this is an example. If the circuit breaker amount were $2,000 in hypothetical fiscal 23 and 20 people qualified, at the 50%, 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, and 200%, this would be the cost to the taxpayers of the town. So right now, if let's just say the select board decided to do 100% and there were 20 people and it's $2,000, we'd be apportioning $40,000 among all the 700 and something residential taxpayers. And then if the select board picks a number, when we come in at the property tax classification hearing, we run the calculations and basically say, okay, this year the residential tax rate is X, or the single tax rate is X, and because you voted to do this percentage, the residential tax rate is actually going to be X plus X cents. So commercial, industrial, which still, the state would still consider it one rate, but you might have 2 or 3 cents tacked on the residences extra to pay for this exemption, and that's how it works. And the criteria, again, it's fairly easy to explain that if you qualify to an applicant, if you qualify for the circuit breaker, you pretty much qualified to get this. In terms of administering it, it's fairly easy to say, based on the calendar 17 figures, there were 29 people eligible. So let's just say there's 29 people eligible. We got to go through 29 applications. I would also publicize it in our town to people who have existing exemptions in any way we could, you know, flyers, whatever. So it's fairly easy to administer. The calculations are fairly easy to do, so you're not bogging down our part-time office with a lot more work. And explaining it to people is fairly good, I think. So it meets the criteria of the 4 easies that were my criteria: easy to understand, easy to apply for, easy to administer, and actually easy to pay. And that's the concept behind it. I have to tell you, after looking at 6 or 7 different kinds of these things, it's the easiest one I found for everybody. And it's fairly easy to do. I will tell you, I have shared this with about 5 other assessors since the select board took a rough look at it. Becky's taken a rough look at it. I have 5 other towns that want to adopt the same thing because everybody says this is really easy to do and easy to explain to voters. In fact, I don't know why everybody went the other way with very complicated formula. And by the way, the Department of Revenue understands it as well, because they now have 2 towns, Concord and Hopkinton, are both, let's see, Hopkinton's going to be in its 2nd year this year, Concord's in its 3rd year. And it just so happens that the assessors there are very high up in the State Assessors Association and have worked with the DOR to get this thing through them. So we know the DOR does not have a problem approving a tax rate based on this. That's most important from my standpoint. if you
Kevin,
don't want, yes, Jim.
just a general question. Any idea how many towns, cities have already adopted something like this?
12 towns as of before this legislative year, 12 towns have done home rules and 2 towns have this. The others have done mishmashes of everything complicated. I mean, I know one town, the book to explain it is 60 pages long versus 3 pages here. And so we know 12 towns have them. We would be the, depending on who gets this approved first, we'd be the 3rd, 4th, or 5th adopting what I call the Concord Hopkinton model. Because I do know the towns I've given it to, 5 assessors are studying, at least 3 of them have been asked, as I was asked, to find something like this. And typically in assessing land, once we find something that works, we share it around to all the other cities and towns. And I will tell you, this works.
Kevin,
Jim.
the circuit breaker percentage, which ran from what, 25 up to 200%, can that be varied, or does the town have to state what they're going to, what percentage they're going to use, and then are held to it year after year?
No, you're held, you can go from 50 to 200. I broke it down. The town could say, I want to do 61%.
So
and you
year
could
by
change it every year. You could change it every
okay.
year.
Okay.
For instance, the select board in the first year could say, let's try this out at 50% and see what happens.
Okay, got
And
it.
then 2 years later say, well, let's get it up to 200 to help people.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
So each year the select board decides what percent on a spectrum of 50% of it to 200% of it. And so it literally could be 100% one year, 50% the next. You know, you
Okay.
can look at the impact on the tax rate and on the budget. Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry, it doesn't go in the budget. That's the other thing. Any other model that cities and towns have, the 10 towns that have not adopted this model are doing it the way of a regular exemption, which means the town has to appropriate the amount for it into the overlay fund, which is taking away from then what you can spend on services, because that's in the 2.5 cap. This is not. That's a very important point to mention.
So you just put this on the recap and it just adjusts the rate accordingly.
Yeah, what happens is when you do the costs on the recap sheet, under residential, you add this in one of the columns, and it then calculates, and let's use this year's or the fiscal 20 tax rate of 2404. Let's say you get to the point where you're doing this and you have one rate of 2404, it will then say, okay, commercial, industrial, and personal property is 2404, but because you adopted this, the residential is 2405. And I'm not saying that's the number, I'm just making that up.
It goes up.
But they still consider it one rate, but it goes up. Like I said, in Hopkinton, it went up 2 cents. And the average bill went up $45. So you can come up with a pretty good example, and when you're at town meeting, go to people. You know, we want your approval to petition for this. Do you feel comfortable paying an extra $40, $50 a year in your taxes to directly support the neediest in the town? The only issue with it is it's for seniors only, 65 and up only. It's not for somebody who's, 30 and had to work for 2 years. However, there are things we can do for those people. We could defer their taxes for a year. They still have to pay them. But this is the assumption here is you have somebody who's elderly on a fixed income, and the increasing value and property tax bill is just too much for them to pay when they're on Social Security. But if you looked at the example I gave, if you did the 200% and the credit combined, you're in the, you know, really knocking down, you're over $3,000 to knock somebody's tax bill down. That's a pretty good exemption for somebody in my mind. I'm paying, well, in my house that I'm living in right now in Mendon, I'm paying almost $6,000 a year. And if somebody told me by paying $50, everybody in town paying $50 extra a year, I could get my tax bill knocked down substantially, I'm in favor of it. And by the way, we've been looking at the same model here for the same reason. We have a lot of school overrides down here for our original school system, and the seniors are getting squeezed out of their houses, and there's nothing anybody can do except something like this to help them.
Can I ask a question? Mike Vinsky,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm wondering why is this in front of the Finance Committee? Is this something the Finance Committee has to vote on or something?
No.
Well, we wanted to explain it to you guys to know the select board's intent when I show them this refined is to put an article on the annual town meeting warrant. And technically it does involve finances.
Okay, it's pretty much the other citizens that are not involved in this program are going to be picking up the cost of it. So
actually, the people who get it are also paying the cost of it as well.
it's really other than raising a tax on the rest of the citizens, the bottom line budget and everything will still be the same.
Correct, but it would be nice to see town boards in support of it, other than the select board.
Right. Okay. And then one question I have: why is the select board the board that would set that rate 50% to 200%? Why are they the
Because under law they do the tax classification, and the other towns that did it said it makes sense to have them decide this because it technically does affect the residential classification.
And wouldn't an easier program than this be something that would benefit everybody? Is like reducing the budget and looking at making the budget smaller so that everybody gets a benefit? Just some questions.
Kevin,
Well, the answer to that is more complex than you think.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Because the tax rates are a factor of not just the budget, but the valuation, and any combination of them going up, down, staying the same affects the tax bill. So it's not just cutting the budget. That's only one half of the equation.
AJ.
And
Kevin,
it also, to get this kind of relief for people, you'd probably be cutting the town budget down to the $2 million range.
Becky, you're trying to say something.
Yeah. Bob had his hand up before Mike started in with
Okay.
questions.
Can I just ask if Jim goes back to the screen? I can't see everybody right now, so I don't know who has a hand up.
Yeah, the same with me. I can't
make
see
sure.
when I'm sharing the
We're done.
document.
I think
Jim,
we all
could
have the documents now that you emailed them, Jim. So why don't we
Jim,
cancel
could you go
out
back
the,
to just the Hollywood Square screen, as I call it?
Okay, we can do that.
And that way I could see everybody.
You really are showing your age.
Come on, you've only got a couple years on.
Yeah,
I'm
well, I remembered
proud.
it too. so.
I'm proud to be 67 years old. I earned it.
I just want to say, I like the idea that this is piggybacking on the state circuit breaker. Because that gets us, they do all the work and they qualify the
Yes.
applicant. And it's progressive. It's a slightly progressive thing. I just want to remind everybody, and you, Kevin, I'm sure you know this, property taxes are extraordinarily regressive, and we're framing this as if other
Actually,
taxpayers are giving something to the seniors, when in
I'm
fact.
sorry, but I 100% disagree with you.
Pardon?
Property taxes are based on the value of the property you own, and they're not regressive at all. They're progressive. In fact, we are measured by the Department of Revenue. Just so you know, Bob, the Department of Revenue will not approve our values and rates until they determine whether they're progressive or regressive, and they can't be either.
Let me just, we'll have that discussion later, but that's not my opinion. However, I'll just say this. that if you're a taxpayer that is paying, say, $8,000 a year, and you have very limited income, this will give you some relief. And
Yes.
that person may not have children in school. And so, that person has been supporting other institutions and other people. So to give relief to that person is not really giving him anything. It's just granting him relief from something that he or she has been paying for
Well,
their whole ownership of the
Yeah,
house.
I'll tell you how another state does it. In South Carolina, when you turn 65,
Right.
provided you've lived in the state for a year, you automatically no longer pay the school portion of the property tax.
That's true in Michigan as well.
However, what that means is from age 21 to 64 and 364
They
days,
get nailed.
you're paying higher to give the seniors that break. This is the same principle, but at a much smaller level, still giving them benefit.
First of all, just a couple comments, if I could. Kevin, I want to just say that I'm very pleased that you're proposing this, because I think it, during my time on the FinCom, I think we've sort of struggled to find appropriate ways to provide property tax relief that benefits the citizens of our town that need it most. And I think up until this is the first time where I felt like we're actually discussing a policy that's going to target tax relief benefit to people who need it, as opposed to, spending free cash just to reduce the tax rate, which,
Everybody.
which benefits, you could make an argument, I don't want to have it right now, but you can make the argument that benefits affluent citizens of our community more than anybody when we pursue that kind of a strategy. So I think this is sort of welcome news for me. I have one question, which gets to, what you alluded to, which is that, this is something that, if there's a criticism here, it's that it's not doing anything to help, working families that, may be on low income, but aren't going to meet this because of a age restriction. And I was wondering if in your research, if you've come across any models that do something like this based on like an earned income tax credit or something, some other sort of simple, easy to implement kind of strategy that uses some proxy for for income and for that sort of targets kind of sort of struggling families. So is there anything like that you've seen?
There are no laws. The only thing I've seen comparable was something the city of Chelsea just announced last week, which is through a charitable foundation, the federal CARES money and some private contributions. They're going to be paying cash to the low-income, out-of-work people for the balance of the calendar year. It's about a $3 million program. They're giving families like $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Got it.
Now, without the CARES Act or that charitable foundation, they'd be raising taxes. The problem is the only people I've heard doing that are what I would call extremely, I don't want to say this the wrong way. Extremely, I hate to use the word progressive. States like California are looking at it. States like Oregon and California is maybe the best way of saying it, that they're looking at ways of doing this. The laws in Massachusetts just don't allow it.
Right.
One option we do have right now, though, AJ, is if people are really in trouble, we could defer, albeit with interest, we could defer their taxes for a year, but they're still going to owe that back.
Right.
To reduce the burden on a case-by-case basis. Well, there are no laws in the state that really handle something like this. And unfortunately, there's not enough request for it, is probably the best way of saying it. it's not a priority among people. I mean, I'll be candid. I was chairman of the Council on Aging in Mendon for 10 years and on the Board of Assessors. And it was that firsthand experience that got me interested in this. And when the questions were raised at the annual and special town meeting, actually Becky's been asking me since I got here, and I said the only thing to do is a means tested. And when it was asked at the special and the annual town meeting, I brought it up again. And correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, you brought it up to the select board, who then came back and said to me, go flesh it out, kid.
Yep. No, they
Yeah.
wanted to hear more.
I guess the only other comment I'd make then is that I think that there might be some work to do around just kind of messaging this to, because, you know, I mean, if I read this correctly, you can qualify for this credit if you, as a married couple filing jointly, if you're earning up to $92,000. And so I suspect that there are.
And your assets can be, in real estate, can be up to 800,000 at this year's level.
Which is a substantial amount. So I suspect that there are kind of younger, struggling families around town who earn less income than that, you know, who are, you know, arguably, you know, having, you know, are responsible for raising children during this. I mean, I just think, you know, it's complicated. But
It has to be analyzed.
Let me make a suggestion though. Okay, somebody has to pay for it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do a similar thing for people below 65, you're then raising everybody's else's bill again.
Right.
To offset that is the only way to do this. My suggestion is, we know this one works. Let's get this one through the legislative tracks and get implemented it. And I happen to be on the legislative committee of the State Assessors Association. Let me raise that in our meetings about what are we doing to help the younger people struggling, and see what the consensus is about how to develop something like that. And if the association doesn't want to do it, to start researching it, which, you know, this is going to take a year or two to get through the process and implement, AJ. That's enough time for me to start researching that while this is going forward. And I have no objection to doing that or looking at it whatsoever.
I'll shut up now, but I think this is great work. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
And again, it would just be nice to see, if it goes to town meeting, the finance committee stand up and go, we like this.
yeah. And that, and when you raise that, you make that point, Kevin, that this would be, I'm just trying to see how this could play out. That would it be the select board that would draft a proposal that would translate to a warrant article?
Well,
And the
I would
and
I'm
what you're
probably
looking
gonna
for
draft-
suggesting is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I'm going to draft the warrant article to match the suggested legislation.
Yeah,
And then I will give it to Becky, and obviously town council will look at it. And then the select board would vote whether or not to place that on the annual warrant.
and this would be something that conceivably the FinCom would support and endorse going
Yes.
into town meeting.
Although
would
it does not
recommend-
affect the budget, it does have to do with town finances.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
It fits together.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
fits together. But I will tell you candidly, if the select board were to vote their first meeting in January to go ahead with this, I would want to write an article in the Spring Hour Town, sponsor a webinar, you know, that we can publicize on the alert system to explain it to people in advance. So to share the knowledge as much as possible before the town meeting.
Yeah.
It's a lot to grasp, but people don't want to sit through an hour discussion of it.
Yeah.
I'd like them to all know what it is, to say, I'd like to put the documents up on the website and say the documents are up there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Hopkinton is going to, actually Hopkinton right now is voting on the percentage tonight, their select board. Had I not been here, I would have been there watching their meeting. we get to January, February, I'll have 3 years of Concord data and 2 years of objective data to give real life examples.
You're putting this all together, much appreciated. This is a topic that's been bantied around in the FinCom for quite some time, so how to address this particular issue. And this looks like a nice possible solution to it. To something we
I have
talked
to
about
tell you,
quite well.
it's something near and dear to my heart, not just because
Yeah.
of my age,
Yeah.
but because, Leslie and I deal with the people coming in for the exemptions. And I mean, I did a phone call today with a woman who just doesn't qualify. She'd qualify for this. She just did not qualify for any existing exemptions. And it's very hard for me as a human being to tell people, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for anything, or to say, I'm sorry, all we can give you is $550 this year, whatever it is, $250 is all you qualify for. It's very hard to do that in my position. It would be very nice personally to be able to say, the town of Shutesbury voted to do this, and now we have 30 people we can help. Nobody becomes an assessor to go, I'm sorry, move. The last thing you want to do is say that to somebody. You want to help people. I think that's in all of our souls to do that. So I appreciate it, but it's another tool to me to help people stay in the town. I have to tell you, as a relative newcomer, it's a wonderful community. I really like it. I bought my retirement home in Shutesbury now, where I'm staying part-time. I did that because I like the community. I'm going to be applying for this in 10 years, guys. So I don't
Well,
want to
thank you,
prolong it.
Kevin.
I've got a busy agenda. So
Yeah.
if anybody has anything else, I'm around all the time. Send an email to us, assessor@shutesbury.org, and I'll answer your question right away.
Thanks for the time. Thanks for sharing your
Thank
time
you.
tonight, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Okay, and I appreciate the positive feedback. It makes me feel like the time I spent was worth it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
night,
Okay.
folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. Okay. Next topic. Becky, I think you mentioned to us, maybe in our last meeting, that this Chapter 70 funding and Section 21 impact would come up, and it was a deadline, maybe a week or so ago, and that we were going to submit some things. There was going to be some activities.
Yeah, the deadline was on the 16th. I did get a statement in from the town administrator representing Shutesbury's position within the community. Being in a region that where Amherst is very much impacted by the hold harmless clause, and they have continued to get a lot of Chapter 70 aid because of it. What is it? And I guess it's $6 million this year. Yeah, Chapter 70 is $6 million at their district school. At the region, I believe it's higher. I'm afraid I don't have that in front of me right now. So they're vulnerable to a large extent. If those funds were cut in half, a $3 million shortfall would be a 10% cut in the regional budget, which impacts everyone in all 4 towns. The little towns certainly can't make up a $3 million shortfall from Amherst. So it's something I just needed everyone to be aware of. I sent out the spreadsheet. I think Susie went through it, and Susie, were you able to get comments in today or yesterday?
So I missed the deadline, which was October 16th. So I sent a email to Joe Comerford and Natalie Blay, and I got a response back from their chief of staff, Jared Friedman. And my comment was, in the time of COVID, when things like Amherst revenue and the wealth of the town is being scrambled, that there should be a moratorium on changing that formula. And they said they agreed. And even though the comment period is closed, Senator Comerford is in touch with DESE and other educations, and will keep your comments in mind. And then I got sort of the same thing back from Natalie today. So even if, and oh, actually one of them said, and we'll get the comment to the DESE, but it's closed on the survey. So I think it's still appropriate if somebody has a point. And I also read the comments that were taken from the survey. They are posted on the website, and you can sort of get an idea of what points people have raised. Several comments from Orange and some of the towns around us, and then a lot of comments from other places. So, so I think it's still worth it if you have a point that hasn't been made to send it to Joe and Natalie. And the discussion is ongoing.
And if any of you, yeah, just send it to them. Does the link on the website that I had sent out, Susie, is that where you can see the other comments if people want to see them?
Yeah, so let's see, where was that? That is on the DESE website. And I went to the, yes, that's where the comments are listed. So the survey is closed and it tells you that, but there's also a place to see the comments. And so that's where you can read them.
And I know that FERCog director Linda Dunleavy was worked through her comments that she forwarded me. She sent those in on Friday, talking for from two aspects. One for the rural schools, where, you know, emphasizing that we not get lost in this allocation, because they're trying to shift a lot more money into urban areas, trying to make a much larger wealth adjustment. And that's the reason for removing the hold harmless. It's to free up millions of dollars for that purpose. And so we're all just trying to advocate as stakeholders for our community that the Chapter 70 money funds we do get are critical to how we operate and to our property tax staying stable. So it's a big issue. So if you haven't looked at it yet, I encourage you to go back to that email, go to DESE and start learning about our region, learning about our district and how Chapter 70 works. So if they do move forward, or when they do move forward on changes to Chapter 70, that you all have a better handle on how it works. Okay, that's all I have.
I've been reading the newspaper that the legislature has not been in session this summer. And the governor has a draft budget, but the legislature, which would normally have responded to that and drawn up their own budget by now, hasn't done anything. So I think we're going to be waiting around for quite a while before we get hard numbers on Chapter 70 or any other part of the state budget, because they're really way behind. And that's really kind of disturbing, considering how much, you know, that we all depend on having some kind of grasp of those numbers. But they have not been in session all summer. And it's kind of sad, but that's where we're at, the state of Massachusetts.
So I did want to comment that two of the things I sent out were the governor's cherry sheets.
Yeah.
And you looked at those.
Yes.
I think he's trying to push them. I've heard that the legislature will pull their numbers together in about 3 weeks. They were waiting for the October enrollment numbers to come in. And then they've got this side situation going on with the Chapter 70 funding formula. But if they make no changes, they should be able to move ahead. The governor did make a couple of small changes. I mean, his budget does, but I think it's only based on the choice and charter school enrollment numbers. Yeah.
I feel that the governor's statement about the use of rainy day funds the purpose of supporting towns and citizens during this time was a good, strong signal to support people. And I don't know how the legislature will react to his proposal, but I feel it's an important statement. This is not the time to slash and burn people. This is the time to support them. And he talked about why having that rainy day fund made that possible.
For
And,
sure. It's good to know, that's all.
yeah, Bob, you're right, because we can't set the tax rate until those numbers are done. And, you know, the accountant was hopeful that, you know, this is spurring on, you know, having the governor go first, it's spurring on the legislature. So hopefully it all comes together in the next few weeks as they've talked about.
Okay, anything else? Any other discussion on this topic?
If anybody has any questions about Chapter 70, Melody especially, please call me and I'll work with you individually. I know last year AJ and Rita had a lot of questions and I was able to go through the spreadsheets and formulas. But if anybody would like to do that, I'm happy to do that at any time. And that means everybody, okay?
I know I would like to have some support and work at understanding this. And so it could be, as long as it's less than a quorum, it could be a small group, right?
I
For tutoring.
definitely do 2 people. Yeah.
Thank you, Becky, for making that generous offer. I would definitely like to take you up on that.
Great. Let's schedule it this
So
week.
Becky, to comply with forum rules, you can talk with up to two of us?
Yep. And it's educational. We're not making any decisions. I'm just going over how the formula works. Just like when the committee got together that Jeff Lacey was on like 4 or 5 years ago with Dan Hayes and George. You know, it's just a review of the information. It's not a discussion about open issues. It's going through how things work and where to find the information.
So it sounds like there's at least 2 people that want to spend some time with you.
Great. We'll get started. And
And
anybody else?
and if 2 more want to do that, could you have a separate session with 2 additional? Is that how that would work? Or
Yeah.
Can't you have up to 3? Isn't that under a quorum?
there's 7 of us.
Yeah, so 3 is under the quorum. You could have a group of 3. No? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take the town clerk's.
That's my math.
I'll take the town clerk's word for it. Yeah, we'll go with 3. And we can do it on Zoom if it's getting cold.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Becky.
Thank you.
Capital plan. We were planning to talk about this last meeting. We ran out of time. We all have a number of documents that we received from Becky regarding history on capital spending, as well as the latest 35-year plan, capital plan. Becky, do you want to lead us through some discussion here? And I know maybe with AJ and Bob being part of capital planning too, maybe between the 3 of you, you can lead us through this discussion.
Sounds good. I guess I would just like to open clarifying the roles of Finance Committee and Capital Plan. Capital Plan was the committee charge was an offshoot of the Finance Committee, and as written has 2 members of the Finance Committee on it. The decision was made to help reduce the workload on the Finance Committee itself, that the capital plan is there to review all capital requests and go through a vetting process so that when capital items come forward to the Finance Committee, the conversation is not about the full project starting over, but it's about the funding of the project coming forward. And I just want to make that clear. We had some confusion about that a few years ago. So that being said, let's start with the capital plan itself. And I apologize. I've been out all day, so I was sick today. I don't have it in front of me. Jim, can you put it up on the screen?
Okay, is this one of the documents you sent to us earlier?
Yeah, it's the one that had like the 25 years on it. Just
You
to
sent
give,
today?
no, it was for the last, and we don't even need it up. I think everyone has the documents. If you can review them
Oh,
yourselves.
okay, this was, all right, I'm sorry. So you want to go through the 25-year plan?
Well, I just wanted to look at it clearly, so people know what to look for on the capital plan.
Okay, now is this the historical document or the looking ahead document?
The looking ahead document. And I just want to point out, we used to hand this out to everyone all the time, but department heads started to see it as more of a calendar of when they would receive replacements, vehicles and such. And it's not for that purpose. The real purpose is for the finance committee to view that as a budgeting item, to look at the future and be able to see out a number of years what kind of expenses potentially that are going to be faced by the town.
Like potential expenses.
Potential, yeah, and potential is a key phrase, but almost everything on there are pieces of equipment, like for the highway department, for the fire department, for the police department, that are the basis for our current level of service that has been supported. And so as we move into the future, we want to have a sense, if we're going to keep that level of service, what kind of cost commitments the town would have to make to do that. Also on there was the broadband used to be on there. It is now complete. The library is still on there with its the money that has come in through fundraising and through the appropriations from the town, and the estimate for grant money. We use that estimate because that was the actual dollar amount, the 2.3 million that the town did not take advantage of in 2012. So it's likely to be a similar amount. We don't know, but it's a good estimate, having received that amount before. And so as you look over this, again, if you have questions on it, please let me know. I'm trying to back it up with the repair histories from the different departments on their vehicles. The department heads are completing those in preparation for the capital planning season starting. So when we talk about the age of items, there can be a notated update on the repair history that each piece of equipment has gone through.
Okay, do you want me to show the plan, the current plan?
I think does everybody have it?
I have it.
We had it from last meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
If you have it, I'm sure everybody's capable of reviewing it themselves. And then the second document there is the list of approved items going back, I think it's to 2013.
Yeah.
And that's just giving you an indication. I mean, when you go back some years, like during the recession in 2008 and 9, there were very few items that were purchased. And as you noted last year, when there was the concern with COVID, no one came forward with a major piece of equipment, or at this time, there's been a sensitivity towards the current financial condition and I think at this point, most of our equipment is in very good condition for now. But it gives you a place to review things and have a sense of what the overall responsibility or what the town owns. There's a lot of equipment and property that the town relies on for day-to-day operations.
Becky, can you give me a date on which you sent out these documents that you're speaking about?
Yeah, I think it was the 10/14.
10/14.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I have something from 10/6.
Oh, it
that
was
has
10.
the
Sorry.
capital plan.
Yeah, it was just before our last meeting.
Yeah, 10/6.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm all mixed up on my dates. Sorry, Jim, it's 10/6.
Yeah,
10/6. Oh, okay.
yeah. And the subject is 2 more pieces for FinCom packet, 10/6/20.
Oh, yeah, I got it. All right.
Great. And
And
we
you
can
have the-
always,
Jim, do you have the document that she just referred to, the history, the 10-year history?
I'm working on it.
The history, the 10-year history document was in an email on September 22nd, excuse me. It's called Capital Planning Recommendations FY 2010 to FY 2021.
22nd?
Yeah.
Yes. September 22.
The PDF.
and they were also, that was also handed out at annual town meeting. Not handed out, it was posted
Available on
on the website, I think. With other financial documents.
Oh, hmm. Well, I'm still trying to find it.
I will send it to you, Jim.
And so capital planning is going to meet or has met?
Met.
Okay, and was
We
the
met, we
budget-
just had elections and a sort of a kind of pro forma meeting where we reviewed the letter which is being sent to departments to request that, to solicit their request if they have any. We didn't really vote on anything other than to approve those, right, AJ?
Right. Yeah.
And we anticipate that we're gonna have another meeting. It's gonna be next month. What is it, the 5th or something?
God, I can't even remember now.
I've got Michael Broad's email here. Let's see.
Yeah.
The next meeting is November 30th. So I just want to say, you know, I think that we haven't received any materials obviously back from any department yet, but personally, I'm going to be very much a hawk on any kind of request because of the financial circumstances that the town is in now. And something is needed, of course, it'll be funded. But I'll be looking critically at any requests given the circumstances of the town. I don't know if that the committee thinks that's appropriate. Sorry about that telephone. I'll just ignore it.
Bob, could you make that last point again? What that you were just making?
The point I'm making is that I'd like to do an extra sort of careful job vetting requests this year because of the COVID situation, depending on how things develop this year financially in the state and in the country, and God knows what's going to happen after the big day, November 3rd, what the state of things will be. But I certainly feel that it's reasonable or proper to be more vigilant about the necessity of certain purchases this year than ever. Like as Becky pointed out, during the year of the recession in 2008, we were very we spent very little money on capital requests because of the atmosphere that we were in those days surrounded with. So I feel the same way this year. I don't know if the rest of the committee feels that's appropriate or not, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I just have one thought on that. I mean, each of these departments is going to be coming up with what they believe their needs are from a capital spending requirement perspective. And doesn't this go back to Becky's comment earlier about whether it's how we fund these or what level we think the town is capable of funding as far as projects?
Well,
For example, if capital planning comes up with $10 million worth of projects that these departments feel they need, and they all are vetted and they seem like viable projects and ones that are needed, but isn't it at the finance committee where we think, well, we don't have $10 million. We only have $2 million or $1 million or whatever.
Well,
available.
We're as a member of the capital planning committee, I think our job is to vet them and see if they're needed. So as wearing that hat is what I'm talking about. Not,
yeah, so the needed hat, whether they're needed.
Yeah.
And that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
I think also the cost of not doing things and putting stuff off needs to be understood. And like Jim Walton said, if we hear of the projects and we understand them, then it is our job to understand the funding, whether we can do it or how we would do it. But that doesn't mean that the project isn't needed. So I know it's a process. It's
yeah, it's just striking a balance. I agree.
right. But I think also it's easy. Sometimes people don't account for what it costs to not do something, and that needs to. And there's the capital plan list of projects has been pretty oriented towards machinery and maintenance of buildings. But there's at some point the town could consider some other things that are not on there, such as a road program. It's in some ways not the time. It's certainly not the time to enact it, but it could begin to be part of the vision of what capital planning for a town like this is.
I do want to remind you all too that I think it's on the capital plan, but the Locks Pond culvert that we've already, we're about to complete the engineering for and go out to bid on is a very sizable project and will most likely require a minimum of $500,000 more or less.
Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. And so is the roof.
And the roof. And those are the two big things on our plate.
Those are both essential to complete yesterday.
And they're both slated for FY22 on the capital plan document itself.
Yeah.
They're coming up. They're here.
Yeah.
And they've taken it quite a while to get there. So
Yeah.
that I hope we can really take care of them, because it's they will hold together, with a school roof. We can stabilize our school building and save from a lot more future costs on that. And the Locks Pond culvert, if that were to have failed before being repaired, it would have been catastrophic. So
Right. Well, it certainly would have been disruptive. Yeah, that's for sure.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the capital?
Thanks, Becky.
Sure.
I had expense report on here. I don't think we have a new expense report. You had a fresh one that was just available during our last meeting, Becky.
Yeah, it had just come out. It's dated 10/31 at the top. I don't think we've had, let me just check.
Or
Is
did you send
everybody?
some out- did you send some out today?
No,
No,
No. Okay, so, but you said you have something that says 1031 at the top?
Yeah,
but that was the one we got before, on the 6th.
Yeah, that was up to date through the 6th.
okay,
That's the-
so I think I do have a new one from Gail that, do I? No,
Yeah,
there
what
hasn't
we
been
have is-
another pay week.
What we have is through October 6th, and at least the version I have is, on the top, it says through 10/10.
All right, so I think there is a new one. Here we go. So we can review this one at then, is the next meeting not until November 30th?
no, that's capital planning.
Oh, capital plan, okay, that makes more sense. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, what is our,
I don't think we have a meeting scheduled, do we, or do we?
yeah, we've got meetings
third.
scheduled for the next
Yeah.
several months.
Not
Okay,
the 3rd of November, please. Yep.
We're scheduled, Bob, through, well, through next year.
so what's our next date then?
I think we have November
Uh,
10th, right?
Yeah, it is November 10th. Review projections, state budget updates with select board.
Okay. So I just sent out the latest, did I send it? Yeah, the latest expense report just went out. Does anybody have questions on the one you had just received at the last meeting?
I did not print that.
This is to 1010.
Yeah,
Yeah, 10/10 on the top.
I think we're looking better. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead to the 1031, but our health insurance is at 22.8% on the latest one, where, 25% into the year. So a little more than, so I think we're doing okay with health insurance so far this year, which is good because last year we had some trouble. So it should have a little more leeway this year. Not much, but enough.
Becky, I just had a brief question on the report that we received with the 10/10 report on highway wages. They seemed a bit on the low side.
Those will be increasing. They were the third full timer just started.
Okay, so that
And
was a staffing change?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were short one for a while?
Yeah.
And, okay. Okay, thanks.
And our 20-hour week person wasn't working full hours for a few weeks when he was ill. So there were a couple different things going on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I just had a general question, like ambulance, what is ambulance service?
Amherst.
Amherst, yeah.
No,
Amherst
no,
has
ambulance service.
Amherst,
Oh, that
Amherst.
is Amherst.
I'm
Yeah, we
sorry.
pay Amherst for our ambulance.
Ambulances come to Shutesbury. If you have not had the pleasure of an ambulance ride, that's really good. But they,
It better be for $32,000.
They make their trips up here.
Is that billed out to the patient's health insurance?
the patient also pays health insurance, but there is a stipend because the total cost over the year is probably well over $100,000. So it's split between the town to provide the service. We've been negotiating. The last real negotiation we had was with John Musanti, and then they only went up like 2.5% after that. But there was, when Hadley dropped Amherst as their health insurance because they felt their rates were excessive, I went in with Walter Tibbetts and we negotiated pretty tough and held our rates to what they were, and didn't get clobbered with the large increases other towns did. So I,
Excellent. Nice work.
Hmm.
Because we need the ambulance, even when we don't need it, we still needed it on duty. That's the
Yeah, it's
expense.
got to be available.
Got to
Yeah.
be there all the time
Mm.
with 2 men on duty,
Yeah.
so, or 2 people, I should say.
Yeah. It's a killer deductible on your health insurance, though. I think it's gone up to $300 or $400 if you use it. It's phenomenal.
Just take an Uber.
it's over 1,000 if you don't have the health insurance.
Yeah.
A true FinCom person.
Take the Uber.
Oh, it's $2,000 if you don't have health insurance.
2,000. Wow. Yeah, that's a, so anyway, we're have their support on that for the time being. Hope that continues.
Elementary school is still running pretty low. But we thought that might be because of salaries though, right? Now that the teachers are back, that should start to close up a little.
Salaries are already in there.
Yeah, I know, but for the elementary school, we were talking about maybe July and August, that the salaries weren't as high because some teachers don't get paid for the summer.
Right. Some teachers take all their salary over a 10-month period, which reduces those 2 months.
Right, so it still seems low to me, but okay, it'll start to grow though.
Yep.
Well, that's still from a couple of weeks ago, George. What you're looking at
No, I'm looking at the one dated 10/15 in the bottom right-hand corner.
The one I just sent out.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
it's all right. And hazardous waste, I'm sorry, not hazardous waste, but the waste disposal, the rubbish recycling and hauling, that contract ends this year, Becky?
I think I have 2 more years. I talked to them. I talked to USA the haulers, and we do have 2 more years. It wasn't a 3-year, it's a 5-year.
Oh, excellent. Right, that's great news.
Yeah, because that we got a steal on that contract. I feel kind of bad because the company sold out to a larger company. I'm not sure.
Why do you feel bad about a larger company?
No, I feel bad that we
You
kind
feel
of
bad for the
didn't
ones who
help them
sold.
survive. That they couldn't survive with what we
Oh,
were
I see,
paying
I
them.
see,
But-
yeah, I see.
But it was great to get that quote because the next highest was double what we're paying.
This is gonna go up.
Yeah, that's going to be something to be aware of in a couple of years. It could be a huge increase.
FY
We'll have to start a
23.
fund for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other issue is the sanitary landfill that's going to be tight. Hopefully we'll be okay, but the rates increased and it was hard to estimate how the new contract worked. So that might need review and might need some attention near the end of the year.
Helpful that we brought in $2,400.
Yeah. That's why I requested that.
Yeah, that's why it's under 25% for now.
Yep. But just barely. And,
Yeah. Yeah, it's close.
and let's hope for.
I don't follow the issue. What's the issue there, Becky? You said there's a rate increase?
Yes.
Dump
Okay.
fee.
Yeah, they went up to $80 a ton for recycled materials.
Yeah.
And we used to get paid for recycled materials.
Yeah.
Where does our stuff end up? Where's our trash end up?
Probably in the ocean.
Well, I'm thinking
Um,
Bondi's Island, maybe we're the ones that started the fire.
India.
Is this
yeah,
related to China not accepting any stuff
Yes.
anymore?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Is that the root of all
That's
this?
the
it
recycling.
was. Yeah.
Yes.
What ungrateful sons of a guns.
uh,
The recycling committee often puts up the numbers of how the town is doing in terms of its recycling stream, and maybe it would be good to have them do a little PR to continue, especially because sort of the general news is that the recycling is not really happening. It's, it's going nowhere, blah, blah, blah. So maybe if
We're
they
getting, right.
encourage it again with some numbers, and because here it's showing up as an expense in the budget,
Because it is.
because it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'll talk to them and see what they think about more advertising.
Yeah.
I recycling could change at some point. I mean, it does keep it out of the waste stream. And
Well, this is an issue, isn't unique to Shutesbury. This is going to be an issue in a lot of places.
Nationwide.
Yeah, nationwide.
wide.
It is nationwide.
Yeah.
I just keep hoping that some inventive person, somebody's going to be able to come in and figure out a way to make money on it, and there'll be an industry, but apparently not.
Reduce
Yeah.
and reuse is really where we got to go.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could talk about reducing the number of trash bags distributed next year or something, and that's the only way we can affect it. We can't control the cost of dump.
This is the other bucket though, Bob. This isn't the trash bags. Or is it?
And yeah, that's right. I mean, the recycling is something that people don't pay for,
Yeah.
but we're paying to get rid of it. Now we're paying pretty much the same rate as we pay for trash,
Mhm.
$80 a ton.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is basically trash to them. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Are they recycling it? Are they burying
Yes.
it?
Yeah. No, they are. Yeah, that's why we went to Community Environmental is the new vendor. It's just more expensive to recycle.
We used to get money. Now we have to pay.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we done paying insurance premiums for the year on our insurance and bonds?
Yes.
That's pretty good. We did really well there.
Yeah, I got a
How
good
come?
credit. I got a good credit on the Maya. We got a few more credits back.
Okay.
What does
And
that
great.
mean? What does that mean, Becky? A credit on Maya?
Maya is our municipal interlocal insurance group. And we get much better rates than on the open market because it's basically a municipal cooperative with 300. Well, I think there's about 200 towns included. So they
Do
give
they-
us, if I go to workshops and stuff, they give us credits. If we pay timely, they give us credits. And there will be some adjustment because I've been working on increasing the values of some of the building, like the school I did last year that just hit on this one. And I'm working on increasing them to more appropriate values because they hadn't been updated in about 6 years. So there's going to be some more adjustments coming there. And the workman's comp insurance comes later in the year, so there'll be more charges against it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my question. So we're not done paying our premiums.
Not fully,
Okay.
but the majority, the big ones. We got the Chubb and we got the life and the property and liability is all covered. All the vehicles
Okay.
are covered.
Okay, anything else stand out? Cost report, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. We have a couple more items. on the
Any
agenda. Go ahead, Becky.
committee reports?
School committee will meet this Thursday, so I will be there.
And I know Jim's MLP meets tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing really to report. at this
except the
time.
orange box.
Except the orange box, yeah, well, which now has a lock on it. So it's, the material has been moved to it and will be in use as of today.
Cool. Melody, anything going on in personnel yet, or is that still on hold?
I haven't heard anything. I think, Becky, you said there was some,
Yeah, in November, we'll be pulling it together. I've been in search of that other person, but we're gonna just schedule the meeting. They used to be the third week in November on Thursday. Does that work for you?
That's Thanksgiving, is it?
It is in November, isn't it? Shoot,
Like turkey?
that doesn't work. How about the second week?
No, the third Thursday is the 19th.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the third works. Bob.
26th is
The
the,
fourth is Thanksgiving.
yeah,
it's a rough guess.
just want to make us laugh.
So if the 19th works for you, Melody, that if you could check on that and let me know.
no, that's fine. I'm looking now.
Great.
Can we look at page 13 on this expense, the broadband enterprise?
The one that
Jim?
Becky just sent us.
Yeah, the one we've been looking at. If you scroll down to page 13, you'll see the enterprise spending. It's less than 10% so far. And I was just curious, is there any reason to think that the pace is going to pick up on spending here? Are there certain things that just haven't come in? I guess the insurance hasn't come in yet.
Well, the maintenance, they hope will be very low. And that's a third of the quarter of the budget.
Okay, yeah. So far, 3%.
And
We've only spent 3% of that budget.
yeah, the maintenance expenses also are delayed enormously because it takes quite a while for Tri-Wire has to bill Crocker and Crocker has to bill us, and Tri-Wire takes forever to do it. And then by the time they do it, they don't know what it is that they actually did. And there's all kinds of confusion about it. So in short, there's going to be a big delay on that item, on repairs and maintenance. We're running like 3 or 4 months behind almost.
Well, that makes a difference, right? Because we had the outage a couple weeks ago. We had a fire on Montague Road when a tree came down. So some of that stuff may not still be in here.
The microburst we had a week or two ago did a lot of damage down on January Hills Road that is not going to be inexpensive to fix. We were lucky that, and Leverett got hammered on that as well, but I don't think the expenses have been all that much. They could have been a lot worse. We haven't had any hurricanes, but you'd be surprised how much damage does occur. Because I'm the one who has to go out and look at it and call people and stuff like that.
Is there a point where maintenance is covered? Some of those things are covered by insurance.
No, well, not unless the event is a event that in total for the event itself, the storm event or whatever it is, runs over $10,000. That, in other words, our insurance policy has a $10,000 deductible.
Got it. Thank you.
And that could be if there was an ice storm, that would be for the event, not just.
Yeah, it's big,
single
big, big storms, especially named storms, which fortunately we haven't had any of yet.
Well, we had one, but.
Yeah, well.
Isis, what was her name?
I think it was a he, wasn't it?
How quickly they forget.
I don't know. It's a name I never heard of before.
Yeah, I know. Isa something or I.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
That caused quite a bit of damage.
Well, it isn't helped by the fact that when the tree, just to give you an example of the intrigue that's going on, down on January Hills Road, there was it brought the fiber right down to the ground, but didn't knock the service out, fortunately. But then the tree company that Eversource came by and did some repair work and managed to break a whole bunch of fiber cables. So we're going to try to collect from the insurance company who actually did most of the damage. And they were trying to fix the line, but in the process of fixing the line, they brought down our customers' fiber. So we're in a bit, I'm not quite sure how that one's going to work out, but it's a story every minute.
Thanks for sharing that, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, coming back to committees, any other committee? I think we covered all the committee reports. We talked capital planning earlier. Okay, all good on that. Becky, you mentioned on school spending, there should have been a closing, a fiscal year 20 closing around now, or maybe even it's already happened. Have we finally closed last fiscal year yet on the school?
Not yet.
No, it's still
Not
open.
yet. Gail's still, she had to wait on a few more pieces from the school. So I know I took some calls from Bruce this week, end of last week, on some details. So I didn't get a chance to talk to her before she left tonight, but I'll find out on Thursday. I know we're very, very close. She's submitted most of the reports she has to submit, but we're not closed yet.
All right. Anything else? Bob, you're on mute.
Okay, should we discuss the school choice issue that I brought up at the end of last meeting?
That's on the agenda. Yes, let's get that. That is on the agenda.
Okay, if the committee is interested, I did do some homework on this issue. I have 3 emails in my outbox that I can send you. One of them is a cut and paste I took out of the state's guidance for choice money. I'm going to send that one to you if I can right now. And then I've got 2 other ones here, and they're supporting documents for what I found out. One of them, the state guidelines are pretty clear that school choice money can be counted against the revenue request from the school and should be act as revenue. There's restrictions on how it can and cannot be spent, but those aren't really against the point that I'm trying to make, which is it should be in our budget for the school's budget. And then I've included copies of the page out of the Leverett budget and also the Pelham Town budget, both of which include the school choice money in their budget as on the revenue side against the total request from the school. So this is what I was trying to submit to the committee, was the way we should do it. And Becky disagreed with me. I did my homework, and I think that what I found out supports what I was trying to say. So please look at the documents and see what you think, and see what the committee thinks. I don't expect that we'll rule on this, but I wouldn't mind having a motion that we do it this way after you've had time to study it.
So Bob, is this something you want us to digest what you just sent us and then have an agenda item for our next meeting to get into it?
I think that's what I think would be practical, because we don't have time to go through it all now, and you don't have time to review the documents. And I think that it would be reasonable for you to have time to look at it and see if you agree with me or not. You all.
Great. Thanks for putting it all together, Bob.
Okay, so we'll make sure we have this as a topic for next meeting.
Thanks. Great.
After we have a chance to review over the next couple of weeks.
And did you just email it out, Bob?
I
Yeah,
did.
just
I
now.
sent it. I got it to you too, Becky.
Okay.
You sent us 3 different documents, Bob?
3 different emails with 3 different documents. Yes.
Okay, got them.
Got him. Great.
And while I wanted to ask Susie a question, because I did some homework on the discussion we had about the about OPEB and healthcare provided to the town employees. And I want to say that I found out Becky was right, and I established that she was right about how the state mandates that we pay 50% of our employees healthcare through the GI. I think it's called the GIC, which is another amalgam of all our communities, which are bundled together as a negotiating group for getting better deals, which I think was a good thing the state has done. And 50% of our retirees premiums are also paid by mandate from the state. But one thing that confused me, Susie, was you said that you opted out of Medicare. And from everything I read, that doesn't seem, unless I misunderstood you, that's not an option.
When I was still employed, I did not have to pick up Medicare, Part B. Everybody has to take Part A.
Oh, yeah, Part B. You have to take Part A, though.
Everybody has to take Part A.
Right, I see. Okay.
That's not even a process, it just happens. But until I retired, I didn't have to take Medicare Part B. Now I'm on it.
Oh, okay. I just misunderstood that, and I just wanted to ask you about it. Thanks.
And Bob, I know it gets confusing, but the reference in statute is to GIC, which is the state health insurance.
Yeah,
Our town is a member of the Hampshire County Insurance Trust.
see.
And we did not move towards joining GIC because it's primarily around the Boston area.
I
And their
see.
rates tend to be quite a bit higher than we've been able to get through the Hampshire County Trust, which is about 60 entities in Hampshire and Franklin County. So the overall costs, they've been able to keep much lower than GIC.
Yeah, that's great. It wasn't clear to me from reading state documents that was even an option, but that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it gets confusing because I think 32B, where they talk about the requirements of health insurance, they always, GIC is in there because it's the state mode. But
Okay, well, learn something new every week.
great.
More often.
That's it. That's why we've been able to keep our rates from increasing so many of the last prior years, is because of the local Hampshire County Trust.
Great, thank you.
Did you say you sent that email, those emails to everyone?
Yeah, I sent them to you. Let's see.
I'm not
Sent.
getting them. They're not here.
I got them.
Could somebody just forward
I'll
those? to me?
forward them to you.
Thank you, Becky.
I think I have your new email.
Yeah, you're on them.
Oh, you know what it is? It's probably my old email. I bet you that's it. Bob, you might-
Maybe. Let's see what I have here.
It's Verizon.
Irving.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
Arvin's.
Verizon, yeah.
Okay, what's the number?
M.G. Arvin's.
So I should change your email now?
Yeah, it's M.G. Arvin's at Gmail.
M.G.
ARVANS at gmail.com. Yeah, I've got them here. They're my other one. I'll just forward them to myself.
Okay, I'll change it.
Thank you.
Great. I think I got them over.
All right. Thank you, Becky. Oh, yeah, there they are. Thank you.
Good.
I will read them.
Okay. Well, now we have homework. Some more homework.
More
Yeah.
homework.
Got enough.
I show for our next meeting, we're going to meet with the select board also on November 10th.
Yep, I gotta
And
make
review,
sure.
we're going to review projections and state budget updates.
Let's hope they
Yep.
speed it up.
What's that?
We hope the state speeds it up.
If it looks like the legislature isn't gonna be complete, we're gonna have to schedule it.
Okay.
So,
There's always something else to talk about.
We'll find something else, George?
What's that?
We're going to find something else if we have to?
There's always something else to talk about. Before we leave, can I just bring up one minor detail I read in the paper this week I thought you might be interested in? Did anybody see the article about Wendell and Leverett Leverett providing police services to the town of Wendell?
Yeah.
Please. Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Did
That
they
is
talk to us
interesting.
at all? Was there any conversation with Shutesbury, Becky?
I think Jeff talked to Peter DeRico. And the police chiefs talked. All the police chiefs talked.
Jeff?
Jeff Lacy, about a
Jeff
year ago.
Federico. Well, I remember a couple
And he
years
brought
ago,
it to
we
the
were in
select board.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, I know who Peter DeRico is. I wasn't sure who Jeff was.
Yeah.
We had talked to Wendell 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, we were actually
Leverett.
talking to New Salem.
Leverett, I'm sorry, Leverett, you're right. I apologize.
And then we're still, there's still a possibility for maybe New Salem.
There is, if they were supposed to be working with Wendell, and then Leverett came in. So I'm not sure where New Salem is at this point.
It's over there.
North
Sounds
on
like a-
202.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
just
dance partners.
It's going to be interesting to watch and see how that goes and how the arrangement works. In the long run, regionalizing to some extent might make sense for us,
Makes a lot
whether
of
it's with Pelham or even jumping in with Leverett and Wendell and maybe New Salem, and also at the fire department level. I mean, our guys are already going to all these other towns. If we can
Yep.
commingle resources, if we can, centralize a little, maybe we might all be able to save a little money, especially
Very
the
good
fire
thinking.
department's very expensive.
It is.
What
There
stage
was,
is it at
there
now,
were
George?
numbers run,
Is this
George.
at a proposal stage now, George, or is it this Wendell?
No, it's final.
They're
It's a
testing it
done
out
deal.
they're
It's a done
testing it
deal.
out for 90 days or something, 6 months, I don't know. It's a test.
Yeah, there's a 3-month period, but they're working on a contract in the meantime, and they're going to see how it goes. And Leverett promised Wendell that they would not charge them more than what Wendell had in their budget.
Which is
last
about
year.
$10,000.
No, well, 44 it said, I think.
When you ride your
44,000?
bike,
Mhm.
you ever see
And
a
it-
cop in Wendell?
I did. I talked to him one day.
Really? I've been riding my bike in Wendell for 20 years. I've never
I
seen a
talked to one
cop.
cop when they were putting the solar farm in. He was directing traffic when they were bringing the equipment in.
Anyways, I
That's
thought
the only
that was
time-
interesting. I
A
thought
Wendell
it's something for us
police
to.
officer used to work on our highway department, so we saw him every day.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, I've been through Wendell hundreds of times. I've never seen a Wendell police
Yeah, and
car.
when I
don't
come
even know
down
what
the
it
hill
looks
from
like.
George, I come down the hill by the lake, I see a Shutesbury policeman and a Leverett policeman shooting the breeze with the gate person at the lake on my way up, on my way down. Everybody just hanging out, having a great time, you know?
Oh, they do that. Yes, they do. They're just coordinating, collaborating.
Sharing intelligence.
Yeah, there you go.
The lake is a very busy place. They've been requested to have a presence at the lake.
Just the summertime, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, well, can I go home now? Oh, I am home, that's right.
you have to make a motion first, Bob.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting?
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we want to vote or do we need to vote? Do we need to vote on that? Okay.
Arvanitis, aye.
In favor?
Artier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Walton, aye.
Okay, November
Right.
10th.
9:16. I think we're better than last week, aren't we, AJ?
No,
All over.
same exact time.
Kirk would not be happy.
See you, folks.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
You all have a good one.
See you.
Bye.
Good night.